Okay, let's go.
I'm about to start it now.
Okay.
Okay. Hello everyone. Good evening. Welcome to our language learning workshop. I'm so excited to see so many of you joining us tonight. My name is Philip, and I will be your host for this incredible journey into the world of languages. Before we dive in, let's take a moment to celebrate the power of language. As the saying goes, to learn a new language is to live a new life. Tonight, we are here to explore how learning languages can explore or can unlock doors to new cultures, opportunities, and perspectives. Now, let me introduce to our fantastic lineup of speakers. First, we have Mr. Nguyễn Phú or Mr. Phú Nguyen, a multilingual educator with over 8 years of experience in bilingual teaching. He will be sharing his inspiring journey of mastering three languages and the strategies he used to succeed. Next, we are honored to welcome Mr. Reginald Williams, a retired small business owner and a polyglot who lived in 37 countries and speaks 8 languages. He will bring us a fun and engaging sessions of the language game where we will explore favorite words and tools for language learning. And for myself, I will kick things off by sharing tips on how to start learning any language, even if you are starting from zero. And we have a few notes for tonight. Number one, you please feel free to use the chat box to share any thoughts or questions during the sessions. Two, we have a Q&A session at the end. So make sure to jot down your questions for our amazing speakers. All right, I think that's it for our introduction. And now let's get started. To begin, I will guide you through some key steps for starting your language learning journey. So are you ready? Let's dive in.
Yes.
Okay, so I will start now. How to start learning any languages? Something about me. I have more than 10 years of 10 years experience of teaching English. I used to teach in Thailand and also teach in Vietnam. And I love to work with teenagers and university students. And I'm the founder of Sunshine School with 7 years of operation. So after more than 7 years of teaching, now I am living in Nha Trang at the moment, and I am planning for a project for an education project here in Nha Trang next year, 2025. My journey when I started, when I was at secondary school, I was afraid of English. I was poor at English. But then I was motivated when I met a foreign friend who came from Germany. And then I started learning some English. And I had the dream of being good at speaking English. But in fact, I was not that good at English at all until university. At university, I started to improve my English by joining English clubs and meeting foreigners regularly. And then I gained a solid foundation in English communication. After that, I studied academic English to pass IELTS, opening up opportunities to become a university lecturer. And then I became a lecturer at university. After that, I wanted to focus more on teaching English. So I took the course TESOL, teaching English to speakers of other languages. Then I officially became an English teacher. And now I have like 10 years of teaching English and develop in this expertise more and more. For today, I will tell you three things. I will tell you three things or three tips that's how you can start learning any languages. Number one is about the different sounds. It's about pronunciation. When you understand about the sounds, you will be able to listen to and to remember and to speak the sounds out. Number two is learning language means understanding people and culture. Number three, learning languages, that's not about studying or learning. It's about enjoying. So don't just learn it, let's enjoy it. Let's start with tip number one, master the sounds. So we have the tip that each language has different sounds. They may be similar. They can, we can feel like they are similar, but in fact, they are not the same. I can give you some funny or some interesting examples that I have experienced. Like when I was in Thailand, Thai people, many Thai people, they speak English a little bit funny to me. Like when they want to go to 7-Eleven, they told me like, hello, I want to go to 7-Eleven. So instead of saying we, many Thai people, they say W. I want to go to 7-Eleven. If you guys are here, if you have a chance to visit Bangkok or to visit Thailand, you can say that to Thai people. They understand. Or another example, I think some of you already watch some Thai videos on YouTube or on Facebook. They say, why do you samai? So that's Thai accent. They say, why do you samai? Or sometimes some Thai people, they make mistakes of sound R and L. Instead of saying red color, many of them, they say red color. Do you like red color? So that's Thai English that some of my friends, even they are teachers and they know English and they are teachers, they know English, but they still make some mistakes like that. Now, let's move to the example, very common example in Vietnam. So Vietnamese English is about ending sounds. Many of us, many Vietnamese here, we don't speak out the ending sounds. So five or five. So all the same. So all fives are the same. When people ask you, hi, how are you? You answer, I'm fine. Hi, how old are you? I'm fine. I want to find a five. So that's the mistake. So, but I understand that many of you here, you realize that that is a mistake. But you are struggling with how to improve it and how to speak the ending sounds better, right? I think so. Uh, and now I have another example for foreigners when they are here, when they learn Vietnamese, and some of my friends when they learn Vietnamese. And I think it is not easy for Reggie. Reggie has been learning Vietnamese really hard, of some hours, 4 or 5 hours a day. And I think they are the challenges for him too. Like xin chào. If we say xin chào, but for foreigners, they say xin chào, xin chào, xin chào, right? But they are different. So we use the tongues. We use the different sounds. We use the different tongues. Then the words are different meanings. Or dưa, dừa, dứa, dưa, dừa, dứa. Okay, so maybe later at the last session of Q&A and discussion, so maybe I will ask Reggie a little bit about this later. Or do you, Reggie, excuse me, Reggie,
Yes,
could you do me a favor, please? Can you say
sure.
melon in Vietnamese, coconut in Vietnamese, and pineapple in Vietnamese, please?
Sure. So giữa, giữa,
Okay, can you do that again one more time, please?
giữa, giữa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Can you
Wow,
tell the
that's
difference?
yeah, I can feel the difference a little bit. It's not 100%, but it's better. It's better than most foreigners trying to learn Vietnamese. So
Okay.
because you understand, I understand. I see that you understand about the difference of the sounds, so you can make it.
About Hieu
But
Nguyen and Yosa? Yeah, I hope so.
yep, yes, you did it. Thanks, thanks for that. All right. So there are some examples about different similar sounds. So remember that more sounds you can distinguish, the more you can listen, and then the more you can speak. We still have a few examples, like in Chinese, they have similar sounds, like to. So they sound like the same. They sound really similar. And so it's not easy for me when I started learning Chinese at all. Or in Spanish, Spanish is easy for Vietnamese people to say a letter yeah, because we have yeah in Vietnamese, but in English or in some languages, they do not have the sound yeah. So Vietnamese people, we can speak Espanol or España, but because in Vietnamese language sound system, we have that sound. See? Okay.
Actually, we do have the sound yeah in
Yeah.
English. Absolutely, we have it. Yummy
Yeah.
means delicious. So it
So
exists in English also.
yeah. So more sounds you can distinguish. So try to master the sounds to understand, to know, to differentiate the different sounds. And then you can
Thì bán
listen
xa thì chấp nhận luôn. Anh
and
học
you can
đi nha,
speak.
trong quốc là đi xe máy mà không chở được đồ ăn.
Okay. So to finish, tip number one, how to make it. So there is so number one is your about mastering the sounds. Just try to listen, and listen again through music, videos, or postcards, and then you try to imitate. You try to mimic or try to record yourself and listen to your voice and check it out and try to enhance it and make it better and better, little by little. That's tip number one. Now we move to number two. Learning, learning a language. It's not just about learning about the vocabulary or about the learn about what the books they tell us, but it's it's more about learning the culture. Language is just a tool to express the culture. So please take culture seriously by watching film, watching movies, series, listening to music, try different foods from different countries, or read more fairy tales, read more short stories, or read more about the etiquettes, about the cultures, about history, about history, and about the festivals of the countries that you are learning their languages. And maybe what you can do is you can add friends. Add friends. You can be friends with foreigners on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and you try to connect with them, like them, comment on their posts, and talk to them sometimes. So that's what I started doing more than 10 years ago. 15 years ago, I started doing that when I even sometimes you think it is hot, but in fact, it's not that hot. Now, thanks to technology, thanks to Facebook, thanks to groups, we can easily find free groups on Facebook, free groups on Zalo, or we can have the different platforms that we can use for free and we can join them for free. So just the thing is, are you really are you really want do you really want to do it or not? And okay, about learning the culture, when you understand more, when you learn more about the cultures, I am sure that you will understand about the differences and you will respect the differences between the different cultures. And that's how you can be more close to the people. You will be more international and you will be more friendly to connect to people from all around the world. So that's tip number 2. Now let's move to number 3. I really like this tip. That's what I have been doing for years. Enjoy it. Instead of learning it, you please enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. Use the language in the real life. Like for example, when you learn the language, you try to be a good friend of foreigners. You can be their free tour guide to take them to travel all around your city. You take them to the pagodas and you introduce to them about your city cultures, your city etiquettes, your city interesting things. And that's how you learn, how you can improve quickly. I am sure about that because I experienced that myself. And sometimes you feel shy when you speak it out. And what you can do is, okay, don't think about the mistakes because the right or wrong is not as important as achieving the communication purpose. So just speak it out, just say it out loud. And when you make mistakes, you learn from that. You do it again, again, and again until you make it, until you are a master of it. And everyday activities using the language that you are learning. For example, instead of using your phone with Vietnamese language, you change your language in your phone into the language that you are learning, like Chinese, like English, like Spanish. It can be hard at first time, but no worries, you will get used to it that really soon. You can try to write. You can write diary every day. You can write something short, very short, in your phone or on your notebook every day. just try to write something, just something to learn, or you try to sing a song, sing sing foreign language songs can be a very good way to improve your pronunciation. Okay, that's it. That's all three things. And to conclude, I would like you guys to remember that a correct pronunciation, number one, differentiating between different sounds. Number two is understanding about the culture. And number three is enjoy it using the language every day. So they are the keys to successful language learning. So the language learning journey is not a test, but an exciting experience that helps you expand your world. There are many free resources online. The most important thing is that you are ready. When you are ready, many people will help you, are willing to share and support you to help you to achieve your goals. And that's it. That should be the end of my presentation today. And thank you a lot for listening to my presentation. And please remember that we have the chat box that you can use the chat box anytime to save your questions or to save your ideas there. And we will check it out for our Q&A questions, Q&A part at the end of our workshop and ideas for our after the workshop also. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And now we will move to the next presentation. Uh, so I would like to warmly welcome Mr. Phu Nguyen. So he can speak fluently languages, English, Chinese, and Vietnamese. And he has been teaching English and Chinese for more than 8 years. And he will share us the journey to conquer three languages. Welcome, Mr. Phu Nguyen.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Philip. So, right, before I start my part, everyone please give Philip a round of applause for his very useful tips in his sharing, okay? Please send the heart icons or the flowers to Philip, okay? I'll give you some minutes to, give Philip some flowers and hearts. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I see many hearts there. All right, so okay, shall we start now? Today I'm going to share with you my journey to conquer three languages. Okay, so a little bit about myself. Sorry, I can. Okay, all right. Okay, a little bit about myself. I am now a teacher at Singapore International School, and I had more than 8 years of experience teaching three languages, Chinese, English, and Vietnamese, to, all kinds of students, many types of students, from kids to adults. And I graduated from Vietnam National University with a double degree in teaching Chinese and business administration. And I also used to study and work in Taiwan for about 3 years. And fortunately, I also received some uh, outstanding international student scholarship when I was in Taiwan. It was a very good journey that I can never forget in my life. Okay, so move on to the main contents of my speech today, which is some tips for mastering three languages simultaneously. The first one is motivation and discipline, and the second one is the rule of focus, and the last one is immersing yourself in the language environment. Okay, for tip number one, we're gonna be talking about motivation and discipline. Uh, on your screen, we are seeing a quotation about motivation, which is motivation is what gets you started, but habit is what keeps you going. So, yeah, before you start doing anything, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I learning a foreign language? Right? So, this is the question that help you to determine what is your motivation at first, right? And then when you have a motivation, you will make a decision and then take action to, create habits and maintain discipline. So, let's talk about motivation and discipline here. Um, to really master a language, I think that you need to dedicate at least 1 hour daily to engaging with a foreign language. I mean, you can use many types of platforms and tools like textbooks, test preparation, YouTube, movies, music, etc. Right? And there are various means to learn and, immerse yourself in the language environment. And one more tip here is that never go to sleep without knowing what you need to do the next morning. I mean, I mean, we really need to know, and we really need to manage our time very well because everybody only has 24 hours a day, right? Everybody's the same, right? So I always plan my daily tasks using a tool called the Eisenhower Time Management Matrix, right? This will help you to schedule specific activities for specific time blocks. And this is the illustration for this tool. So basically, we're gonna have urgent tasks and important tasks. For tasks that are both urgent and important, we need to do it now. We need to prioritize them, okay? And for the thing that we think that is important but it's not urgent, then we can schedule a time to do it. We plan to do it later. But if the thing is urgent but not important, you can delegate it to somebody else. Think about who can do it for you, but not you, okay? And if the task is not urgent and not important, right, of course, we delete it, right? We eliminate it, right? Don't think about it too much. It will be the distractions that will, affect your productivity, okay? Right? So, actually, we do not have a lot of time to talk about discipline and habits here, but if you want to learn more about managing your time or, um, creating good habits, you can check this book out. This is called Atomic Habits, one of the best sellers from New York Times, right? Has anybody here read this book? Anybody? No?
No.
Okay, so you definitely should check it out, right? This book will introduce a lot of tips, and I think that it is really realistic and practical to apply into your daily life. Okay, you can jot down the name of the book and check it out on Google. You can order it from Shopee or Tiki, right? So that is tip number one. We talked about motivation and discipline. I would like to move on to the second tip, which is the rule of focus. Right, the rule of focus. What are the rules? The rule of focus. Right. I mean, you need to prioritize something, right? Um, in fact, it takes about more than 10,000 hours to become an expert in any field, right? Quantity leads to quality, right? So always remember that we need to invest our time in order to become an expert in any field, right? And the second thing is that the rule of focus. I mean, this is one of the the law of the universe, right? In other name, right? So the point of the rule is that what you focus on will expand. When you focus on something, it will expand, right? So when you focus on learning Chinese, your Chinese will be better, right? Become more and more better. Okay. And then I think that when you learn something or when you do something, you need to define your goals very uh, clearly, right? Um, are you learning to achieve IELTS 9.0, communicate fluently, or simply excel in speaking and writing Chinese characters, right? So you have to have a very clear goal, right? And personally, I used to learn two languages simultaneously, but my tip will be you need to focus on one at a time. For example, if I have to do two tests, I will focus on IELTS first if I need to, and then I will shift to HSK, which is one of the Chinese tests later. I will avoid doing two at the same time because it will have a lot of distractions and we will not have the best result. Okay, so the last thing is defining expectations and allocating resources. Right. So yeah, during the test preparation period, remember that you only focus on one test at a time. Okay? Do not multitasking. I mean, somebody can do that, but most of us cannot multitask effectively. Okay? So, but when you can master one language, you can code switch very easily. It may feel chaotic at the beginning, but when you reach some level, you can, code switch between languages very easily. I used to code switch between Vietnamese, Chinese, and English at the same time when I have conversations with my friends, a group of friends with different people from different countries. It's very interesting. That's a very interesting experience. Okay. Right. So let's move on to the last tip, which is immersing yourself in the language environment. Okay, so there are many platforms that you can immerse yourself in, which are YouTube, TikTok, Netflix. Um, but there is a thing called algorithm. So the algorithm is that the more you watch some kinds of content, the system will suggest similar content the more you will see it, right? So uh, you need to aim for what I call edutainment content, which is education and entertainment, right? I always try to watch edutainment content as much as possible because I do not have a lot of time, right? So yeah, um, when I was in Taiwan, I was in a multilingual environment, but when I got back to Vietnam, I will focus on my input because I do not have a lot of opportunities to speak in foreign languages. So, but I think that with enough input, output will naturally follows, right? So, um, You can also make friends with foreigners or simply joining clubs to practice speaking. And even you can utilize AI tools like ChatGPT as a language partner. I used to chit chat with ChatGPT a lot. I chat with GPT about all the aspects of my life, and I receive many useful and rational answers from ChatGPT. This is a very intelligent friend of mine, right? So, does anybody here use ChatGPT every day?
I do.
Yeah, good.
We'll talk about that
Okay.
later.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about that in the next section. Okay. And when you reach a specific level, you can watch English movies with Chinese subtitles and vice versa. That's a very um, interesting experience. And that can really train your brain. It really is a way to challenge your brain, makes your brain work harder. Okay. You will become smarter learning many languages at the same time. All right. Okay. And today I'm also sharing with you some effective learning resources. If you are learning English and Chinese, you can refer to some YouTube channels like Chinese Pod, which is a podcast for many levels of Chinese learners. And when you want to learn about pronunciations, you can check out Rachel's English channel, or if you want to prepare for the IELTS speaking test, you can refer to English Speaking Success, which is a very useful channel that I used when I was learning for the test. And there are some English books to start with. That is American English File, Mastering the American Accent Training, some pronunciation books. I think they are all very, useful and basic when you get started. And if you want to start with a new language, let's say Chinese, you can start with the standard HSK book. This is a book for, basic Chinese vocabulary and grammar, but it also can equip you with the knowledge for the HSK test. Okay, so these are some learning resources. All right, so at the end of the workshop, we also will send you the ebook, the ebook that has the documents and resources for learning foreign languages. And I'm also having English and Chinese class right now. So if you join the workshop today, you can, send me a message and say that I joined your workshop on December the 8th. You will receive a 5% discount of any course from me, okay? English or Chinese, right? This is a small gift for everyone that joined the workshop today. So you can connect with me through my Facebook or Zalo. My Facebook name is Nguyễn Anh Phú. You can find my name Nguyễn Anh Phú on Facebook, or you can add my Zalo with the number 091-3044-716. Okay, 091-3044-716. Okay, so I think that is also everything for my part. Thank you for listening. And now I will give the stage for our special guest today, Mr. Reginald Williams. Please welcome Mr. Reginald Williams.
Good evening, everybody. 日本語で始まることを計画してたんだけれども、つい英語で喋ってしまった。Puedo presentarme también en el español si quiera. Hoy día estoy aquí más para el inglés que para el español. 한국어 할 수 있어요. 에, 음, Néanmoins, noi voi bakung kote noi bang tien viet một chút. But I'm here this evening to give a presentation about English, not about the other languages that I speak. Let's see if I can get control of the slides here. Excuse me just a moment while I move on to tell you a little bit about my favorite tools for learning English and about not really my favorite words, but how I go about choosing words, why I choose words to learn, and what I mean by that. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I too am formerly a teacher. I taught English in Japan. I taught Japanese in the United States. I taught Spanish in South America. I taught an international business class at a university in Tokyo, and my classes were taught not in English, but in the Japanese language. Those are the three languages that I use equally well. No, my Spanish and Japanese are not absolutely perfect, but I'm comfortable giving a lecture in those languages and have no problem communicating, and have been told by the police that I must be a liar, that on the telephone they did not believe I was an American. They believed I was Japanese, and they asked me to come to the police station to prove that I was an American. So I have learned to speak several languages very comfortably and very well. And I don't really say I speak 5 other languages. I say I speak some Korean, some Vietnamese, some Chinese, some Portuguese, some French, some Italian. In those languages, I can have a basic conversation. I can ask for food or where the toilet is. I can communicate at a basic level. But in addition to my experience with language, I have established businesses in Japan first. I opened a shop buying and selling violins, very old violins and very valuable violins. And then I opened the same business in the United States. But I also opened a gallery of antiques, very, very old Japanese art and crafts and furniture, paintings, sculpture, many things used in the home. And many of these things are now in museums. It was a very interesting business. These businesses allowed me to travel the world, especially the violin business. I bought violins in France, in Italy, in Germany, in South Africa. I bought a cello in Argentina. Obviously, when I traveled and did business in these different countries, it was very helpful to speak other languages. Spanish helped me a great deal in Europe and in South America. Japanese helped me only in Japan, but Japanese was extremely useful in Japan to develop strong relationships with my customers. And I believe Mr. Phu talked to us about motivation, what motivates us to learn a language. And perhaps Philip addressed this as well. So for me, my motivation actually was not business, though. It's truly the love of culture. It's the love of other cultures. It's the love of people. And this motivation was of the greatest importance. And so what Philip had to say about culture as a part of learning language, I could say culture for me is perhaps the deepest motivation. No, the people themselves, but the people come from the culture, or the people create the culture. And so this is a bit about my background. I'd be more than happy to meet and talk with any of you and learn more about you and share more about my background. But now I'd like to move on to talk about how I learned these languages. And I'm going to talk about a few specific things because clearly learning a language requires many elements. I'm going to focus today talking about the tools that I use and that perhaps you should use. And I'm going to focus especially on ChatGPT, which is a tool I've only recently discovered, but it's been very powerful in helping me with my Vietnamese. I'm going to talk about choosing the words that we learn. And I'm going to talk about how I decide when to learn certain words. Why would I choose words? We'll talk about that later. There's a very good reason. And choosing the right words is part of what has helped me to learn so much of so many languages. How do I learn, especially how do I memorize new words? Because as we see here, language is a game. You see this game over here that has rules and grammar and a framework. Language has words, and it has not thousands of words, not hundreds of thousands of words, but most every language has 1 million words or more. So we have to memorize, we have to learn a lot of words, and we have to learn how to use them. And learning the words is only the beginning. How to use them is the really critical part. Because if you cannot use a word, you will lose that word. You will forget it very quickly. You may pass the test, but when the test is finished, if you don't use the word, you forget it. So I'm going to talk a bit more about that later on, and a little bit about how I practice these words. So very briefly, I use many, many, many different tools. This is just an overview of some of the more important ones. And you may see here Google Translate in the collage, the illustration on the left. Google Translate, flashcards. YouTube is not on here, but I certainly use YouTube. I use Duolingo, and I use it a lot. And I use it differently than some people do. I use fundamentally and most importantly, paper and pencil. And I use children's storybooks. I use ChatGPT, and I use, obviously, my friendships with people. You should choose your own tools, and no two people should probably have exactly the same tools. We have different personalities. We have different needs. Our reasons for learning language are different, and how we use the language will be different for each person. And so you must choose the tools that work best for you, but some tools can probably work for all of us. So a little bit about my system for learning. I can't possibly explain everything that I do. I could do a whole lecture on just how I use flashcards. It's actually very simple at first, but it's actually very interesting and a very wonderful and powerful tool that we don't have time to talk about enough today. But flashcards is one of my most powerful tools, along with ChatGPT. So I find a word, I choose it, I write it when I'm thinking, and I suddenly realize I don't know how to say that, but I want to talk about that. I'll write it down. I find words when I'm reading, and I don't try to remember every word that I read. I don't try to learn every new word I read. It's not possible, and it's not a good idea right now. Later on, as I become more advanced in Vietnamese, yes, there are many very difficult words I will want to learn. But I look at the book I'm reading and I choose my favorite words. They're like my toys, my favorite toys for my language game. I write many things in my notebook, and so I review my notebooks and I realize, oh, I didn't write that word down. Or at that time, I didn't want to learn that word, but now I need it. So I'll look in my textbook, review it, and write it down again, or my notebook. I write only the words I really want to learn. Sometimes I write a word down and later I put it aside. But when I make a flashcard, that flashcard is because I want to learn that word and I want to focus on it. And I don't want to focus on every word. We'll talk more about that. After I learn a word, or after I write it down, I check the meaning in Google Translate or in a dictionary. But ultimately, I check the meaning in ChatGPT, and I'm going to show you how that works and how powerful and interesting and useful it is. So this word about choosing words and choosing them carefully. I said I choose the words I want to learn, that I am interested in. I choose the words I feel like I need now. So right now, I'm still learning about how to order pho or bánh xèo or bánh mì. The word sophisticated is not a word I really need to know right now. So I'll save it for later. I don't need it soon, but I may need it hopefully by the springtime. My Vietnamese will be good enough that I will talk about sophistication and refinement and exploration and discovery. But right now, I'm still learning some more basic words. I also think about the word and I think, am I interested in that word? You know, if somebody is talking to me about politics and government, but I love music and art, the words that talk about the government are not interesting to me, not now. So I don't write them down. I don't try to learn them. But the words that I want to learn, like a little child learning Vietnamese, a little Vietnamese child, he doesn't want to talk about politics or government. He wants to talk about ice cream and candy and toys. So he chooses to learn those words, or she choose to learn those words very quickly. So I'm looking for those ice cream words, those toy words, those candy words, those entertainment words, and those useful words that I need, like I need to go to the toilet. I better know nhà vệ sinh. So let's see. It's good. So here you can see, and please don't focus on this. You'll see too many mistakes and problems. But this is where I'm writing sentences with my words, and I go back and I review, and I might pick out cơ hội or thành công, or who knows, hạnh phúc, and decide that's something I'm going to focus on. Oops. So here you see I've written down cả and hội and một chút and nhưng một and hạnh phúc. But I've also written down để, sáng tạo, để cung cấp kiến thức. Actually, these words should all be in black, and this should be green because this is something I'm going to focus on later. I'm going to talk to you about how I compare these words using ChatGPT. Using a dictionary, it's very difficult to understand what's the difference between these two words. But with ChatGPT, I discovered a whole new world. And it really was very interesting to understand why we have these two words and which one means what. Now, these words here, I wrote down because somebody taught me these words. And then I stopped and I said, I really don't want to learn te, because my teacher explained to me that te is not very much used by Vietnamese people because it's strong and aggressive and not pleasant, not a good feeling. So I'm not going to focus on remembering it. And this one here is just way too complicated, way too difficult. And yes, I am interested in creativity and how it's used in the news, but no, I'm not going to try to learn this right now. So this one is going into ChatGPT. These words are going into my flashcards. And after ChatGPT, I'm going to put these in my flashcards also. Actually, I will use ChatGPT also to compare ka and Hieu and một chút, to try to understand. I know they all mean a little bit or a little, but they seem different. So I'm going to try to understand the differences. I'll move on. You've seen enough of my ugly handwriting. I just wanted to give you an idea that I do write a lot. I write like that almost every day. Now, after I learned the word, it's really important to know how to use that word in a sentence. Many people make the mistake of writing and learning 50 words, 100 words, or I learned so many new words, but they can't use them. They can't use them in a conversation. So I don't memorize grammar rules, but I check grammar with GPT. How do I do that? I ask GPT. For example, I'll write a sentence. Bác muốn đi học, nhưng mà bác không không có thời gian. And I'll ask ChatGPT, is that correct? And can you correct my grammar? And can you suggest a better way to say it? And ChatGPT teaches me. So I look for patterns. I look for sentences that I can use many times, and I try to imitate those. If I find a sentence that's too difficult and I can't use it now, so a grammar pattern, a sentence style, it's just too long and complicated, I'd save it for later. But I copy the sentences I can use into my flashcards. So I'm using these three. I'm actually using myself, ChatGPT and flashcards by NKO. This is a very powerful tool, which you can find on an iPhone or not on a Mac, only on an iPhone. And ChatGPT you can find in a Mac, iPhone, PC. It's available online everywhere. But if you want flashcards for an Android phone, this flashcard app works for Androids. And I think it may be useful to some of you. So you may want to screenshot this if you want to remember these flashcard apps. So let's talk a little bit about ChatGPT. It's an amazing teacher. You need to think about how to ask questions to ChatGPT first, and I'm going to give you some sample questions that I use because I find them very helpful in learning about sentence patterns, very helpful in learning about comparing words, commands that I use. So you have to think about these, and you have to make your own questions also. Certainly what I show you is not the only questions I use. It's just a good example of some of the most useful and most common ones. However, writing these questions takes time. Some of my questions are very long, and If it's a question that I'm going to use many times, I don't want to type the whole question 100 times. I might use the question 5 or 10 times in one day or more. So I learned how to make shortcuts, and I'm going to teach you how to do that if you don't know how to do it already. And the shortcuts I'm going to teach you, you may wish to screenshot or you may wish to create your own, but whatever you create, you may wish to write the shortcuts in a notebook so you can easily remember the ones you're going to use. So here's one example in green here. An example of one request to ChatGPT. I call it a command or a request. ChatGPT, compare, contrast, and comment. Give me 3 Vietnamese examples for each word or phrase. And then I write in A, I may write một chút, and in B, I might write ít or thôi, or what was the other one? Don't remember now. Sorry. So I create a shortcut. I don't want to type all of this, right? That's a lot of words to type. And of course, you could do the same thing for Vietnamese, Chinese, or any language you like. So how do I do this? I create a shortcut. In this case, actually, it was not even C, C, and C. In my iPhone, I just have C, C, C. And when I type those 3 letters, I get a long compare, contrast, and comment statement that you just saw in the previous slide. If I type CCC, I get all of that. It types out in 1 second. So I don't have to type it again. And then I type in the 2 words I want to compare, nhượng mộ and come phu, come phu. So watch this. Are you ready? Yeah. Thank you. Whoever's doing this, Philip, I guess. Exactly. I typed the CCC first, and then everything printed out. And next, I just type those 2 words out. Now, there's that command. That's all I typed. Oh, you see here, you're seeing the ending whole command, which just appeared on. That's what appeared. Compare, contrast, and comment. Give 3 Vietnamese examples for each word or phrase. So it saved me all of the time of typing this. And then I hit return. I hit the go button. And the information I get from ChatGPT. All of this information comes for me to read and learn about the words and compare them. And then gives me 3 examples of each word. So I have many requests like that. And that's why I find that this text replacement tool, which is in your iPhone, Android, and it may be in your PC. It's not in all computers, apparently. Here's how to use that tool in an iPhone. And I'll show you for the Android after this. In an iPhone, you go to your settings, general. And if you want to screenshot this, please do. It's a very simple process. Then we go from there. When you hit go for the previous screen, you will see, I'm sorry, let me say that again. When you tap on your general settings, you will see keyboard. It's all the way down here where you see the green arrow. You tap on keyboard. You can screenshot this if you want to. And then you will see text replacement. Tap on the arrow, and you will see a plus. Tap on the plus. You can screenshot this. If you screenshot all these and try it in your phone, you'll see it's like magic. And then you will see this screen opens up, text replacement. Here is where you type, and here in the phrase, you can type a long command. You could type 10 sentences if you want to, and I did, and I'll show it to you later. And then you don't ever have to write that sentence again. You just write CCC, and like every time you open GPT and you want to compare words, you CCC GPT, it will create the, and then you only type words that you want to compare, or the one word you want to learn about, or the sentence you want to learn about. After you put those two, the command and shortcut in, you have to hit save. And then when you create that save, you will see some of your commands. They are in alphabetical order. Here you can see that I have my name because I write my name many times. So I don't want to type it out every time. I just put my RODW. My son's name happens to be a Japanese name. So I don't like to write all of that and find it on the keyboard. So I just write RAY. I'm on my way. But the more relevant commands, of course, I'm coming to next, I will show you, are for the language tools that I use. This screen here shows the same process, but for an Android. So these are the steps on an Android that you can use. You may screenshot this if you want to do this on your Android phone. And this is perhaps, for many of you, the most important page to screenshot. Even if you don't create the shortcuts on the right, but I recommend that you do because it saves time. But if you don't, knowing how to ask the questions to say what you want to say to ChatGPT, this is very powerful. So one thing I use many times, correct my Vietnamese. For you, it could be English, Spanish, Japanese, Korean, and comment. This comment is very important. ChatGPT actually writes very interesting comments explaining why what I wrote is not correct. And sometimes it explains why what I wrote is correct and what's good about it. It's like a teacher. And here's the one we worked on, compare, contrast, and comment. So here I have two words and I want to know the similarity, I want to know the difference, and I want the comments. What's different about them? So this command is a very powerful way to learn a lot about the words you're learning to use. And then, this is important, give examples for each word or phrase. And it always gives me, and I can say, I can change this command. I can say, give me 3 examples, give me 5 examples. And for one word, I actually said, give me 10 examples because I realized that word was used many different ways and I wanted to understand. I won't explain each one of these commands. Most of them you will see, it's very easy. And you can change any of these yourself, change the words. You can create your own 3-letter or 4-letter or 5-letter code to save time and not have to type it. But let me show you, before I finish my talk today, something that I did just a few days ago. I suddenly said, maybe ChatGPT can teach me a whole lesson, not just 2 words. So I wanted to learn, I wanted actually to help a woman who asked me how to use look in many different ways. She said, I understand you can say look up, look for, look to, look forward to, look after. She said, can you teach me about the many different ways to use look? So I went to ChatGPT and I wrote a long paragraph explaining that I wanted ChatGPT to teach me a lesson about look. So this is just a little bit of what was in the command, but the actual command starts in the middle. I'm not going to read it all, but you can see that I'm explaining, create a lesson with 2 or 3 paragraphs using at least 10 different expressions beginning with look. And I continue explaining how I want this English lesson to develop. You can do this for yourself as well. You say, teach me about anything you want to know in the English language, and say, give me a lesson with 10 questions and give me examples of everything in that lesson. Let's see here. So I asked ChatGPT to create that lesson, and it gave me immediately all of these different uses: look after, look forward to, look into, look up, look out. All of these were in the lesson immediately with just 3-letter command. And I can use that same command next time to create another lesson. So let's continue here. I'm sorry. So the lesson also gave an explanation for each of these words, and then the lesson created exercises because I asked it to. Now I don't have to write all of that long explanation again about how I want the lesson to work. I just need a new word that I want to learn about, or a new group of words, or a new group of expressions, and it will create a lesson about those expressions. And every time I want a new lesson, I just type 3 letters and I'm finished. And now I'm finished talking about ChatGPT. I hope you will go out and pay me my commission so that I will get rich from explaining how good ChatGPT is. Actually, I hope that you will use it if you're not already using it, because it is an incredible way to learn. Even for me, here in Vietnam, surrounded by these lovely Vietnamese people who are helping me learn Vietnamese, when I come home, I'm with my wife and she doesn't speak Vietnamese, but I want to continue learning Vietnamese. And I don't always have somebody I can ask. So in conclusion, today, concerning the tools that I love to use and the strategies I use, I appreciate your listening to what I had to say. I hope that some of these strategies, some of these ideas, and some of these tools will be useful for you. I encourage you to explore and find tools for yourself to meet your individual needs. And I encourage all of you to share online tools and useful sites, and or useful GPT commands with me. However, I failed to provide my contact information. So I think the easiest way to do this is, if Philip knows how to put that on the screen right now, he can share my email address. That would be great. And if he cannot, perhaps you can write to Philip or to Phu. Well, Philip is the administrator. Philip can provide you with my email address. But here it is on the screen. It is turtle, Conrao, 77 at me.com. Turtle77 at me.com. If you send me an email, I will reply. and I look forward to hearing from you, to sharing with you my ideas, and to learning from all of you. Thank you so much for listening to what I have to say today. And thank you, Philip and Phu, for joining me. It's been a pleasure meeting and spending time with all of you.
Okay, thank you so much for your sharing, Mr. Reginald Williams. All
You're
right.
welcome.
So we've been sharing a lot of tips today on how to, learn a lot of languages, right? How to start with a new language or even learn multiple languages at the same time. So now I think we have some space and time for Q&A section. If you have any questions, feel free to leave your comments on the chat box and we will answer your questions one by one. Okay. Mr. Philip, can you sort out some questions?
Sure. Um, firstly, I would like to say thank you everyone for staying here until now in the workshop. And in this Q&A session, this is a good chance for all of us, to ask anything about language learning tips, tools, or even ask anything about our speakers, including me. Personal journeys, or feel free to share your questions. No question is too small or too big. Um, and I think that I already received a few questions. And as I'm searching for it now, the first question I found. Okay, I will show it here.
Mhm.
I will show it here. Let me do it again. Do it
Sorry, but
again.
I just get back in. So can we have a session like I can ask Mr. Reginald a question in person?
Sure, you can do that. Okay, okay, I
Yeah.
got it. So I will put it on the list. No worries. I
Yeah.
remember
Okay.
it.
I'll wait for my turn.
Okay. I see that. I put it on the list now.
Okay. You guys can leave your comments or your question on the chat box. And if you
Yeah,
want to interact with the speaker, you can click on the raise hand button. Okay.
sounds good. Okay, I think I will start with the first one. So one of you asked me, oh, what do the tips that I shared based on? And then I answered that based on my own experience. And then she said, in my opinion, experience can't copy as knowledge in science sometimes. So do I agree with the opinion or not? And, and I see that it is a really good question. Uh, it is a really thoughtful question, and I see the point. And I think that I agree that experience is not the same as scientific knowledge. Because science gives us rules and patterns that apply to many situations, while experience is just personal and unique. So what I share uh, is personal and unique. However, I believe that experience helps us test and apply what we learn. For example, when I try a language, a learning method, I see that uh, I see what works for me and what doesn't, and then I share that with others. And it might not work with everyone, but it can be a starting point. So To conclude, I think science and experience can work together. Science gives us theories and experience helps us see how they work in real life. So I think both are important in learning anything, including languages. So what do you think about combining both? That's it. Thanks a lot again for the question, for the very thoughtful question, and I really love it. I also received two questions for Mr. Nguyen Anh Phú, and I think I will put the questions here now. Uh, okay, I will put it here for now. So two questions are number one, how do I so that no, okay, I can do multitask, as you mentioned, number one and number two. Could you please help to send in the group pictures of, okay, so that was only one question. Okay, only one question.
Okay, question number two is very simple. We're gonna send you the picture of the book Atomic Habit. It's a really easy task, right? So for question one, how do I know I can multitask as you mentioned? Okay, so what is multitasking? It's doing more than one task at a time. So if you want to know if you can multitask, you first have to try it, right? You try doing more than two tasks at the same time and see if you're comfortable doing that. For example, you can listen to music and doing your homework at the same time and see if you're comfortable with that. If you can concentrate on two tasks at the same time, if you feel comfortable and your result is very good, I think that you're a person who can do multitasking. But if you're not comfortable and you are distracted, I think that you should focus on one thing at a time. And my strategy would be focus on one thing at a time. Because as I mentioned, there's a law called the law of focus. When you focus on something, that thing will expand. So I think that my advice is when you first start anything new, you should focus on that first. And then you can multitask if the task include one simple task and one simple task. I mean, your simple task can be done without any effort. In that situation, you can multitask. But if your tasks are so complicated, I do not recommend doing so. Okay. So back to your question. If you want to know if you can multitask or not, first try it. Okay, and see if you're comfortable with that. Thank you for your question.
Mr. Wu, can you see the screen text on the screen now?
As Mr. Phillip share, how can I know which experience that all of you share suitable for me, and how process to combine science and experience in learning English?
Interesting.
Right, tough question.
Okay.
I think that if you want to know if an experience is suitable for you, you must try it first. No one can do it for you, right? All of our advices are our advices, but you need to try it on you first, right? And see if it's suitable for you. You have to experience it by yourself. And, you will learn from that experience and you will find out which aspect, which approach will best suit you, okay? And the second question is how to process, how to combine science and experience in learning English. How to combine science. Mr. Philip or Mr. Reginald, would you like to answer this question? Combine science and experience?
Well, it's an interesting question. Um, to be honest, I don't think I have combined science and experience in learning any language, um, except in one respect, and that has to do with the development of many apps that are being used now for language learning, especially for memory. Science shows that certain words, when they're repeated often, become easy to remember, and that some words, no matter how often they're repeated, are not easy to remember. And some of the powerful flashcard apps that are in use now, and that includes both of the apps that I showed you, the flashcards by NKO and the other flashcards for Android. Both of those apps actually incorporate a scientific algorithm, brings up the words that you've already mastered only very infrequently. So you don't waste time reviewing the same word over and over again. And that's the problem with many people's notebooks, where they write vocabulary in a notebook and they go down the list and they see many words that they already know. And they waste their time going down the list just to find the 3 or 4 or 5 words that they don't know. So these flashcard apps actually bring to your focus the words that you really need to learn because you really haven't mastered them yet. And it puts the other words that you're familiar with in the background automatically. In this sense, science is actually taking your personal experience with word learning and applying it to a mathematical system that keeps the important words in front of you and moves the other ones to the side, so you don't have to waste time organizing and reorganizing your notes, your notebooks, or your physical flashcards to do the same thing.
Thank you, Mr. Reginald.
You're welcome.
And now,
Philip, any
uh,
other questions?
okay, I see that this question is really interesting. Maybe if we focus on this, we have a lot of ideas. I have a
Mhm.
lot to talk and really want to talk more about this. Maybe this question can be discussed in our group later after this workshop. Because
Mhm.
I see that we still have a lot of things to talk about this.
Yeah.
So now what we can do next is Mr. Lương Cao Phát will have a question to ask Mr. Reginald Williams. Now,
Okay.
Okay, first of all, I want to say hello to Mr. Reginald. Sorry, I can't attend the first part of the session. So now I'm here. And the first thing I want to say is that I'm very interested in attending this session because I have heard that you have learned many languages. And as my friend, Mr. Fu, said that you have learned 8 languages, right? And 3 of which are the languages that you are fluent. So
Yes.
yeah, and as for me, I'm a teacher. I'm also an English teacher. I teach many students in from the university, and in my experience, I have met a lot of people, a lot of students with the same problem about learning about vocabulary. And when you learn new language, I think vocabulary is something that very important to learn. So I want to ask you a question that I have thought about it for quite some time. So how do children in English speaking countries learn vocabulary? without having to study it in a direct way, like through textbooks or some test preparation books, like people in non-English speaking countries.
So are you referring to children who are learning English as their own language, or are you referring to children who are learning other languages?
Oh, I'm sorry for not to be so specific. Uh, um, my point is when teaching English to some student in the university, I always tell them that let's try to be a baby. If you want to learn the language English, you have to think yourself as a baby because for some of them, it's the first time for them to interact with English. So I want to teach them in a way that English parents teach their kids how to say words, how to use words in real life situations, something like that.
Okay. Well, you use the same analogy or the same example that I often used in my teaching when I taught English in Japan, especially many years ago. I said that babies learn language naturally. And this is why in my presentation, I talked about choosing the words you want to learn. Why do babies learn language naturally? Because they're motivated to communicate their needs primarily in the early years. So this motivation that Philip and Phu referred to is absolutely fundamental to language learning, and children are the perfect proof of that. Children learn imperfectly. They learn usually not to be afraid of making mistakes when they're small children because mommy is the one they learn their language from first. And mommy is so happy when baby says something, even if the baby says something that's nonsense, she's delighted that he's trying to say something. And she says, yes, yes, yes. So the example I give, and I give this to my students in Japan, I talked about making mistakes and I talked about learning imperfectly, like a child. The baby, for example, is trying to communicate about the light on the ceiling, the bright light, maybe colored Christmas lights up at the top of the tree. But the baby doesn't know the word for Christmas lights. So the baby points up and he says, up, up, mommy, up, up. And mommy says, yes, the lights. And the baby says, light, light. And the mommy says, yes, light. That's right. The baby is actually wanting to communicate. So he's very happy when mommy seems to understand what he wants to talk about. And he's very motivated to learn that new word. Even more motivated if mommy's talking about ice cream and he didn't know the word for ice cream, but he knows he likes it. So the motivation is there in the child, and the child naturally hears the repetition and gets the repetition. And that repetition is critical. You can't teach 100 words in a day and teach the correct pronunciation, the correct usage, the correct meaning, and actually retain that and then go out and use those words. And a baby doesn't. A baby learns a few words at a time every day, maybe a words, but he really learns how to use that word. It becomes like his toy. So that's how children learn, in my experience. And there's a wonderful, much more, much, a wonderfully detailed and explained book about this motivation for children to learn a language, written by a great musician, Japanese musician. The name is Dr. Shinichi Suzuki. And he wrote a book titled Nurtured by Love. He is the teacher, indirectly or directly, of probably close to 500,000 violinists using his system. And in this book, he explains how children learn language. and how music is just another language and explains the relationship between the two. It's a book I can recommend for all parents who are teaching their children a language. It's a book I can recommend to anybody who's interested in music or language. Nurtured by Love. Wonderful book. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, for some aspects, I think that I have understood your ideas, and from my experience, so I want to ask you something more about that topic. I mean, okay, we are all agreed about how to teach vocabulary to children, to young children, maybe
Mm-hmm.
toddlers. Yeah, but how about teenagers and students from universities? Um, I think that for some students from the universities, maybe this is the first time they actively learn the language English. So there may be some difficulties that they may have in their way of learning that. So I want to ask you how to teach, in your opinion, from your experience also, how to teach grammar and vocabulary for some adults, like students from university.
Well, the question of how to teach vocabulary or how to teach grammar, either one of those questions could be a 1 hour lecture in and of itself,
Mm.
which I suspect you recognize also.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I think that one of the things that brings vocabulary to life and that brings words to life is context. And so finding
Mm.
meaningful context, finding sentences that put words into context, that
Mm.
show, and finding, so looking for good context, cultural and otherwise, is one
Mm.
part of it. Looking for relationships. And there's a fantastic book, and I really wish I had put it up here um, on the site. I'm trying to think of the title. The two key words are word power. And if you just Google word power, this book will come up immediately. Every time I've tried, it's come up. It's the first book that comes up. It's by Norman Lewis.
Mm.
It is a very big book. I used it in high school to study English myself. And I still remember many of the lessons from that book. And I have shared the book with many people.
Mm.
Everybody who has looked at it has been absolutely impressed. And I myself must have been very impressed because I used that book 55 years ago. And I
Mm.
didn't remember that book until a few weeks ago. Somebody asked me a question, and I said, "Oh, I had a book in high school that was incredible." And then I started remembering all the lessons from that book. The book is good because it puts every word in there into context. It focuses on words that will appear on the SAT or on the IELTS. It's that kind of vocabulary, or that will appear on college examinations. And it shows how these words are built. It shows their prefixes and suffixes and the relationships between the meanings of those suffixes, so that, for example, the word philosophy, you remember it because you learn that soph, S-O-P-H, is to know. And then you learn that sophomore, which is the second year in high school or second year in university, is the year when people think they know more, so they call them sophomores. And then you learn all of these other words with the S-O-P-H root in the word. You learn about repeat, rehabilitate, remodel. It groups these words together so that they're logical and go, oh, well, that's easy to remember. It's like for me trying to remember, I think it's do means tool, do hop, do boy, do choi. Is that the correct? I'm probably not,
Yeah, that's
don't
right.
have.
That's right.
Okay, so once you learn that can be combined, it's like, wow, that's powerful. I didn't waste my time learning Do for nothing. Now I can combine it with all these other things. I can even make a new word myself, and somebody maybe will understand it. That's true of English also. You can add re to water, and you have a new word, re-water, and maybe it exists and maybe it doesn't. But if I say I'm going to re-water the plant, everybody's going to understand me. And this book teaches you how to bring these words to life with
Mhm.
context and relationships. So Word Power by Norman Lewis, for any of you that want to go out. And they have that book here in the bookstore here in town. I just bought one as a gift for a friend of mine. So you can find it right here in Nha Trang, near the Dumb Market, one of the big bookstores there.
Yeah, I just found out that this book can be bought from some online store in the country also.
That's
So
correct
I
also.
think
Mhm.
so I think I'll give it a try. And I think that my question must have been uh, how to teach vocabulary or how to make vocabulary more interesting. But
Mhm.
your answer made it clear. So
Well, thank you.
thank
I'm
you
glad it
for
helped.
your
I hope it
answer.
helps your students.
Yeah, it's really helpful.
Great. Thank you for the question. Interesting question.
Thank
And a
you.
useful question, should be useful for everybody, I hope.
Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot for the questions from teacher Lương Cao Pháp and from Reggie. And now we still have a few more minutes for our workshop. And Miss Queen is ready to show up and to ask us, especially to ask Reggie about a few things. And we think that for the next for now, we will have 5 minutes for that. And after that, all the questions after that will be sent to us and also will be sent to some value groups. And after that, maybe we will have more time and we will have more opportunities to discuss more. And now, uh, let's get on the stage, Miss Queen.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, I
well,
Yes,
can. I
yes,
can't
sorry,
see you, but I can hear you. Wait a
I
minute. Are
can't
you
open
Wasabi?
camera. Yes, it's not convenient with me now. I try to explain my opinion. Because in my opinion, I work in a Finnish career, and I can understand how body work. That thing explained by science. So when we learn English, we learn by brain, right? I confuse
I'm
like
sorry. I couldn't understand. We learn by what?
by brain. I mean brain.
I'm not catching that word gram. We learn by gram.
Brain. Yes.
brain.
Oh, with our
Yes.
brain. We learn with our brains. Yes,
Yes.
of course. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. So like the brain based on scientists, right?
Yes.
Yes, I
Well, the
confuse
brain,
like yes, I confuse like how scientists know the process, the brain, like working process of brain, and that thing can link the thing how to learn English or not. Because we use brain to learn English, right?
yes, of course. We hope you use your brain to learn English. Yes. It's the best way to learn.
So in fact, we use our brain to learn many other things also.
So are you asking, how do scientists know how we use our brain to learn?
I mean, like the brain can explain the how the working process of brain can explain by science.
Yes, I suppose that's true. I know that scientists do study the process of language learning.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, but the study that like I mean like have any study or researchers to share that like any method link between the plain work together how to learn English.
I know
Because
that,
yes, all you explain by experience, but like not sure everyone can copy you. So it's mean like we have one thing same is brain.
well, I took a class in teaching English as a foreign language. And the first thing that we learned in that class was that there isn't one way to learn. Science has shown that there are at least 4 or 5 different kinds of language learners, adult language learners. These people learn in very different ways. I don't remember precisely the categories, but there are people who remember by vision, like they see things and they associate what they see with words very easily. There are other people who learn by body movement. Um, and there are other people who learn by reading more effectively. Others who learn by listening more effectively. I have a Russian friend, for example, who's in a language group with me, and he claims that he's never actually used flashcards, he's never used notebooks, he just listens and learns. And so he actually is probably the perfect example of the child that Professor Luong Kao Fop was referring to. Children do not use books. They don't have dictionaries. They don't have grammar books. They don't have vocabulary books, but their brains just absorb. How do they absorb? Some of them through their ears more. I mean, it has to be through the ears for a spoken language, of course, but some of them seem to connect with movement, and others connect with things that they see. So some it's more tactile, like through touch, they seem to learn more quickly. So science does have many things to say about learning a language. When I spoke about my system of learning language, I speak about it because it's all I can speak about. It works for me, and I could possibly, if I wanted to, study a different way of learning and talk about that. But uh, my own experience is the most powerful tool that I know to work with. And so that's what I focused on sharing with people.
Okay, may I add some points?
Please.
Okay, so for your question, you want to know that how science can affect the way we learn languages, right? So, um, so I just want to add some points. Okay, sorry, Philip. And so, um, like we apart from science, you know that our brain is very complicated, right? 5% of our brain is determined by our consciousness, and 95% of our brain is um, determined by our subconsciousness. And when we use our subconsciousness, we are using our thoughts, our emotions to to um to create more memories to learn something, right? So when you can use your emotions and your thoughts into learning, you use all of your senses, your way to memorize, for example, vocabulary will be more effective, right? So Quỳnh, I think that we should not only limit ourselves with science, we can always open our mind to, uh, to new approaches that can help us in the learning journey. Okay.
Okay, okay, okay. Wow, what a fantastic Q&A session. It seems like if we had 1 more hour or 2 more hours of our workshop, it would not be enough. However, this is not the end of our discussion, but just the beginning of our discussions for in the future. And after this, we will keep in touch and just connect with us through Zalo groups, Facebook groups, Zalo, Facebook, or emails or anything. Then we can discuss more and more. Thank you to all of you for the great questions and to our amazing speakers for the insightful answers. Um, Thank you, Mr. Fu, for your journey reminds us of the importance of the persistence, planning, and smart learning techniques. And thank you, Mr. Reggie, for your demonstration of using ChatGPT as both a creative partner and a hardworking language learning tool. And we have a lot of potential of using the tech chat GPT and technology to improve our language learning journeys so far. As we close, I would like to leave with you this thought. Learning a language is not just about acquiring skills. It's about unlocking new perspectives and connecting with people and cultures. So whether you are inspired to practice more, explore ChatGPT's possibilities, or dive into a new language entirely, the key is to stay curious and keep moving forward. Thank you, thank you all for joining tonight's workshop, and we hope to see you again in our next event. Until then, happy learning. So bye for now. I'll see you guys again for the next workshop or the next events in the future, maybe. Thanks and
Okay,
bye
happy
for
learning.
now.
Thank you guys very much. Okay, see you in the next event. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye for now.
Mhm.